Good afternoon. I think one or two of you have just started joining me this afternoon for my second presentation of today's Language Show Live. So you are very welcome. Um, we are just going to take a couple of minutes to allow other people to join. I think they'll probably be joining from previous sessions that they've been in. So you are very, very welcome. If you would like to use the chat facility to drop me a quick message to let me know where you are tuning in from, perhaps what languages you teach, and just to say that there is also a separate Q&A box. So if throughout the presentation you have got any questions specific to anything that I speak about, then please do use that and I will come back to that at the end of the session and try my very best to answer any of the questions that you might have about today's session. We'll just give it a couple more minutes to see if we have anyone else joining us, and then I will make a nice prompt start. I hope you have been enjoying your Language Show Live sessions so far, yesterday and today. I will certainly be catching up at some point over the next week or so. Just an amazing wealth of speakers and topics. So I hope that you have had a great show so far, and I hope that you managed to take away some interesting bits and pieces from our session today too. Okay, so let me have a little look in the chat. So if you would like to say where you are tuning in from, if you're in the UK, if you're overseas, what languages you teach, that would be lovely to find out who you are. And for anyone who's just joined us, you will also have the Q&A facility should you have any questions. Wow, so Petra is joining us from Romania. You are very welcome, Petra, and Joe from Essex. Please feel free, if you haven't done so, to drop me a message in the chat to let me know where you are tuning in from too. Sorry, I've just skipped forward a screen by accident. Okay, let me just come away from there. Oh, having problems with the Q&A button. Right, I think we're going to make a nice prompt start. We've got one more. Hello there, Marit from Berkshire. You are also most welcome. So I think we'll make a start this afternoon. So I'm going to be speaking to you on behalf of myself and my lovely colleague Danielle Bourdet, who unfortunately can't be with us today. And our session is reading and writing skills for the new GCSE with a cultural twist. So if you have been to the Language Show Live previously, you may have come across Danielle and I. We are both very firm believers in the importance of integrating target language culture into our language sessions here in the UK. And we have recently set up a new enterprise called Francosphere, which I'll be talking to you about in due course. So just an overview of what you have signed up to this afternoon. So in this practical session, I will be talking to you about different ways of approaching culturally rich, accessible reading tasks taken from La Francosphere. So with the new GCSE in mind, I'm going to be demonstrating a number of simple translation, comprehension and transcription tasks where the French-speaking world and its traditions are at the fore. So hopefully if you are here, that is what you were expecting. And we're going to be looking a little bit at targeting exam skills and also including high frequency vocabulary, grammar and culture. So I hope that is what you were expecting. And as I said, you are all most welcome. Please, if you do have any questions, as I'm going through the slides, to pop them in the chat. And on the final slide of today's presentation, there is a tiny URL link where you will have access to all of the slides. So please do feel free to share those with friends and colleagues back in school. So sit back, you don't necessarily need to take any notes. And once you have access to the slides, you will be able to see anything that's hyperlinked. So for example, a link to our TES shop and various other things that I'm going to be speaking to you about. So first of all, I'm going to start with an introduction. So this idea that culture is the golden thread that runs through our languages lessons. In part one, I'm going to be presenting you some ready-made resources that Danielle and I have been tirelessly working on over the last few weeks and months. In part two, I'm going to be talking to you about books and magazines, other sources of inspiration for bringing more of the francophile into your teaching. And then in part three, I'm just going to mention very briefly what you might do in recognition of your work on global citizenship and what we call decolonising the curriculum. So, starting with the national curriculum, those of you who are teaching in the UK or teaching a UK syllabus, you will be well aware of the languages programme of study for Key Stage 2 and 3. And I just wanted to start with the first few sentences of the purpose of study. So this is a statutory document within the UK, and it states quite clearly that learning a foreign language is a liberation from insularity and provides an opening to other cultures. A high quality languages education should foster pupils' curiosity and deepen their understanding of the world. And then if you look at the aims, and this is just one of them, it states that the national curriculum for languages in the UK aims to ensure that all pupils understand and respond to spoken and written language from a variety of authentic sources. And I think if you have heard me speak before, if you've heard Danielle speak before, the reason why we advocate supplementing your curriculum is not because we are criticising textbooks in any way. I think textbooks definitely have improved over the years and certainly have their place in high quality languages teaching and learning. But often where they do fall down, and as I say, it's getting better, is where they integrate the wider target language countries. So in our case, the wider francosphere. So hopefully in today's session, there will be plenty of opportunities for you to think about how you might try and increase the amount of target language culture, not just from France, but from the wider world where French is spoken. So if you are aware of the Association for Language Learning, so you have got the link there at the top, the Association for Language Learning is the UK's charity for all teachers of all languages, and there's a link there if you would like to find out more. But back in lockdown, I was approached by the association to write an article about why it's so important to integrate culture into our lessons. And the title of the document was Building Cultural Capital in Primary, Culture Makes a House a Home. Now, those of you on the call, I would imagine, are predominantly secondary teachers, but I think a lot of what is written in this article, which you'll have access to at the end of the presentation, is equally relevant to teaching secondary. And I think the key takeaway from this article is that if we think of learning a language like building a house, and we see high frequency vocabulary, grammar and phonics as the foundations on which we build, I would argue that adding culture into the mix turns that house into a home. And I've said this on many occasions in many presentations, but I've yet to find a child who, even if they're not switched on by their language learning generally, is not interested in finding out about other cultures and other children, not just the differences between them, but also the similarities. My colleague Danielle, who, as I say, is unfortunately not able to join us today, she passes on her apologies and her regards to all of you. But Danielle also has written more recently for the Association for Language Learning, and there's a fantastic article which you can have a little look at later as part of these slides, where she talks a little bit about how you can use imagery and how you can use culture within your lessons. And there are a number of really interesting links that you might want to further explore. As I said, we are both part of the Association for Language Learning. I'm currently the honorary membership officer. And if it is something that you are interested in joining, particularly with the new GCSE in mind, we are a really friendly bunch. There is a discount code there at the bottom of the page. And if you don't know about the work of ALL, I would strongly encourage you to take a look, because at times like this, where we are faced with lots and lots of changes, there's only really one constant in the world of teaching, and that tends to be change. But if you are interested in their work, then please do follow that link via the QR code, and do take advantage of the 10% off code. So just starting here with what we mean by the francosphere, these are a couple of infographics that I came across recently, and I've shared these on a number of occasions with my students. It's really important that we let our students know that there is a world of French outside of mainland France. It is great that we are able to encourage our learners to find out more about l'Hexagone. However, you know, there are millions and millions of people across the globe, across the 5 continents, who speak French. And I think it's really important, if we're trying to sell our subject, and not necessarily have too much of a Eurocentric approach to learning French, that we actually focus on these countries as much as possible and as frequently as possible in our lessons. Um, Here's another example from a book that I often refer to in my language lessons, showing students a picture of the globe, or actually getting a physical map out of the cupboard, and asking them to locate all of those different places where French is spoken, and not just places where it is a first language, but where it might be a second or third language alongside Wolof, etc., wherever you might be in the world. Couple of really nice examples here taken from Pinterest. I think these originally were from Mon Quotidien, which some of you might know as a publication by Playback Press. So letting them see, you know, what do we mean by the Drôme-comme, what is La France d'Outre-mer, and I've just screen grabbed these two because I have made a really big effort in my new school to partner every single one of my classes with a school in the wider Francosphere. So, for example, my year 4 class have partnered with a school in Marseille. My year 5 class have got a partner school in Morocco. My year 6s have a partner school in Guadeloupe. My 7s have a partner school in Martinique, my 8s in Mayotte, and my 10s and 11s and my small number of year 9s are targeted with a school in Senegal. And I think not only does it open their eyes to the wider Francosphere, but it also gives me some really rich opportunities to bring in texts like this, where they get to read from an authentic source, which we referred to earlier in the national curriculum, and where they actually get to learn a little bit more about the world around them. So a bit of cross-curricular learning, in the sense that they are combining their language skills with perhaps a little bit of geography. So part 1, I promised you that we would talk about ready-made resources. So Danielle and I would say, have made our life's work to try and encourage teachers like yourselves on the call today to integrate as much of the Francosphere into your lessons as possible. Now, as I said, I think most of you are secondary practitioners, but if when you get a copy of the presentation, you click on the link, there is a resource there which is targeting Guadeloupe. And our website, francosphere.wordpress.com. I'm not going to click onto there at the moment for fear of messing up my presentation. But if you click on anything that's hyperlinked, including the francosphere.wordpress.com, it will take you to our original website, where we started to host a number of free resources that focus on the French-speaking island of Haiti. So why would we include the Francosphere in our languages lessons? Well, I would say that there's never been a better time to incorporate more Francophone culture into our lessons. Post-Brexit, you know, post-COVID, attitudes around language learning vary from very, very reluctant to learn a language. Why do we need to learn a language, Madame Buell, when everyone in the world speaks English, which we know is clearly not true. But also, as I say, in a post-Brexit UK, you know, really trying to encourage not just that Eurocentric view of French, but also having our students learn about the wider diverse world around them. So the resources that we've published thus far, hopefully you will find to be engaging. They are certainly age appropriate. We are really keen on cross-curricular learning. They're very easy to implement because we've done all the work and the research for you. They're time saving for you, the busy teacher, and they are accessible to pupils from age 8 all the way through to adults. So we're going to have a little look at some of those in a moment. As you can see at the top of the slide, we have just opened our first Times Educational Supplement resources shop. And at the moment, all of the resources on there are free to download. They won't be longer term, but if you click on that link and if you go to the TES shop in the next few weeks, you will be able to download all of the resources for free. As I said, they are in multiple levels, so from primary through to advanced level. They are ready to print, display, and use in any way that you see fit. And I think for me, certainly, although I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of Danielle, it's about teaching the usual in an unusual way. We're not veering away from the typical GCSE topics and themes. We're certainly not trying to replace the good work of the textbooks, but what we are trying to do is supplement them and do all of the things that it talks about in the national curriculum document. We're trying to make sure that we are liberating our students from that insular view that perhaps some of them hold, and we are using authentic resources. But what we've done, which has obviously saved you a lot of time, is that we've pared the language down so that it is appropriate for the level of students that you are teaching, and we have created activities that go with the tasks so that you don't have to. So moving on, this is what the shop front looks like. So it is called Francosphere. You can see from the brightly coloured logo. And underneath here, you have got the resources. So currently there are 8 resources, and they vary from Key Stage 2, so right the way down to primary, all the way up to Key Stage 5. And I'm going to talk you through some of those in the next few minutes. I was going to come out of the presentation and actually take you to the shop, but I think it's probably safer just to show you the screen grabs on the computer, and then in your own time, once you've accessed the presentation, you can click on that hyperlink there and it will take you straight to the shop. But if you do a quick search of ts.com and type in Francosphere, you will find the page there. So here are a couple of screen grabs. You can see that we focused on a number of French-speaking countries. So there is an intermediate resource called L'École au Cameroun, which is intermediate. So you are talking about students, no matter where you are in the world, between the ages of 11 and 14. The second one there on the right-hand side, L'École en Haïti, is for a more advanced student, so probably from 16 and above. And then La Rentrée en Nouvelle-Calédonie, from 11 to 14. So different resources for different ages, and as you can see, focusing on a number of different cultures. On this slide, you can see a couple of the others. So La Rentrée en Guyane, so French Guiana, that one is suitable for age 16 plus. Sur le chemin de l'école, this is one that I wrote a few weeks ago. This is more suited to students aged 7 to 11. I think with a little bit of upskilling, you could actually do that with a beginner Key Stage 3 class. La Rentrée en Polynésie Française, you have got aimed at 11 to 14. And then there's just one more slide. L'École en Haïti, which is another one aimed at our younger language learners, aged 7 to 11. And then L'École en Haïti, which is aimed at intermediate. So that would be your 14 to 16-year-olds. So looking at Key Stage 2 to start with, if you are on the call and you are a primary practitioner, this is the resource that I mentioned, which is focused on a film that was released a number of years ago called Sur le chemin de l'école, and it focuses on children's journeys to school. Just to look at the grid that you have on the screen, you can see there we've tried to look at the level from not just a UK perspective, but if you are teaching in Scotland or Northern Ireland, in the States, Australia, or if you are teaching to the Common European Framework of Reference. So where in the Francosphere, one of the 4 children in the video lives in rural Morocco. So the target language, sorry, the target focus country from the Francosphere in this example is Morocco. You've got a few quick facts there, which we've done for every single resource. And then the topic is exploring different school experiences. So their journeys to school, similarities and differences with learners' experiences, life in different countries, and then importantly to us, the right to education. So the different language points, this could tie in with the topic of transports, time and higher numbers, and obviously different countries. You've got a couple of links there, which, as I say, are hyperlinked. So a link to the trailer for the film on YouTube, and then some links to further resources should you wish to explore this in a bit more detail. You've also got a little box at the bottom which contains the answers, so we felt it was really important to provide the teachers with the answer grids as well. So on here, you can actually see the resource. So you've got a screen grab there of Saïra. She is the 12-year-old young lady from Morocco who is featured in the video. And basically what you would do as the first activity is watch the trailer for the film and then draw lines between each column to make a correct sentence about each child. So a very structured and supported reading and writing task. Second activity would be to watch the video again and trying to focus on where the children live. So are they from Kenya? Are they from India? Are they from Morocco? Are they from Argentina, etc. In section 3, we're homing in on the Francosphere. So as I said, this important element of extending children's understanding of French being spoken outside of France, exposing them to faces that are perhaps not white. So do you know in which one people speak French? Discuss this with your friends and write it down. So hopefully they will have realized that that is Morocco. In exercise 4, they're going to watch the video once more and circle the correct options. So again, they're listening for detail here. What age is the child? How long do they take to get to school? And they do that for each of the 4 children. On the next slide, you can see a different example. Sorry, I've just clicked forward too quickly. This one is for Key Stage 3 to 4. So again, you've got the overview grid. This one is about a child's experience of school in Cameroon. In the UK system, this would be suitable for Key Stage 3 or 4. The target language country in this example is Cameroon. Again, you've got the quick facts, you've got the topics, so typical school day, so times, school subjects, similarities and differences, and life generally in Cameroon. For the language points, we would look at the present tense, regular and reflexive verbs, given opinions of school subjects, time phrases linked to routine, some discussion points and some potential prompt questions in English. We don't have a problem with students talking about their understanding of the Francosphere in English just as much as they might do if they're a bit more advanced in French. And then again, some more links to resources. The source material for this one was actually from a charity in France called Solidarité Laïque. And if you have a look at the third image here, just where I'm hovering my mouse, you've got a beautiful image which talks about Emmanuel's and Latifa's day at school. And you have got some really quite straightforward language that the children can read and digest. And as we said, that importance of authentic materials. So on this one, it's quite small on my screen. I hope you can see it a bit better. For exercise 1, can they match each word or phrase to its translation and then check in with a partner? In the second activity, they would watch the video. So this is the video of the actual children that we're talking about here, Manuel and Latifa. So on their YouTube channel, you will see an extended clip about their life, about their families, about the importance of their grandfather, for example. And all they would do is a simple true or false activity based on what they are watching and observing in the video. So some really lovely, authentic material there. In task number 3, they're going to read the text to the right about Latifa and Emmanuel's school day, and they are simply going to circle the correct answer. So it's quite a, it's probably a bit more complex reading task, but the actual activity that they need to do is very much about deciding between one of 3 potential answers. And that's one for Latifa and one for Emmanuel. And then, as we've tried to do in each of our resources, there is a discussion section at the end. What did you already know about life in Cameroon? I think sometimes when you ask this question, I've been amazed in the past to find out that some of my students have traveled to different parts of Africa with their families, or they've got family who live in different parts of the French-speaking world. And they're really keen to know that to let their friends know what they already know. What surprised you in the video? Is there anything that they can't perhaps relate to, or that they found a little bit unusual? And what do they think of the teacher and the parents' comments and about their views on education? So getting them to think perhaps a little bit more widely about the right to education, perhaps about how they maybe take their own education for granted, that in other countries outside of the UK, perhaps, education isn't so freely available. And then moving on to Key Stage 4/5. So this is just to show you an example of the resource which focuses on French-speaking Guyana. This one is suitable in the UK for students between the ages of 10 and, sorry, not the ages, between the years 10 and 13. If you were in the Scottish system, years 3 to 6. In Northern Ireland, 4th form up to upper 6. In the United States, if you teach between 9th and 12th grades. In Australia, years 9 to 12, and if you were someone teaching towards the Common European Framework of Reference, that would be A2 to B1. So where in the Francosphere, this time we are focusing on Guyane. Again, some interesting quick facts there, which you might or might not be aware of yourself. Topic here again is different school experiences, so the implications of living in a remote place, the experience of living with a host family during term time, and again, similarities just as much as differences with the learners' experiences. The language point here you can see is a much higher level. We're focusing on the subjunctive. And again, we've got some discussion point questions about life in Guyana, what perhaps surprised them, again, what they think about the people's views of education, their commitment to education, and then some extra links at the bottom where you can find out a bit more about life in Guyana. So here you have got a slightly more lengthy and detailed activity, which you would expect for the higher level. So exercise 1, you are going to see if you can match up each word or phrase to its translation, and then check with a partner, watch the video and tick the words as you hear them mentioned. And then we've put a bit of a red herring in there, spot which one isn't used. At the top of the right hand page, they're going to watch the video again just from the beginning to 2 minutes and 9 seconds in, and then decide true or false if the statements below are actually mentioned or if it's perhaps slightly different. As an extension task, they could perhaps change the ones that are false and try and include the correct answers. They're then going to watch to the end of the video, so from 2 minutes 9 onwards, and complete the sentences to summarize the video. And then you can see in French this time, there are some discussion points which hopefully you'd be able to exploit further should you have time and the desire to do so in your higher level lessons. So as I said, those resources currently are free to download on TS Resources, so please do make the most of that while they are going for free. In this next section, I'm going to be talking to you about books and magazines. So a number of years ago, I think probably through sheer frustration that I couldn't find the kinds of books that I myself wanted to use in lessons, I put together a business which is called Polyglot Languages, and it was all about putting the foreign back into that idea of modern foreign languages. And so I came up with this character Polyglot, and Polly is a multilingual parrot, and the books focus on her adventures in the French-speaking world. So you can see there on this slide a couple of screen grabs from some of the books that I've written thus far. So just to give you a little snapshot, they all are ebooks, so they come as a PDF. Most of them are 30 plus pages and they are in full color. And as I say, they are ebooks. They include hyperlinks to external videos, songs, and games. There's a little bit of light touch assessment in the form of Quizlet and Kahoot quizzes. There's a full English translation. And what was really important to me when I was writing these books was that I had the audio read to the children by a native speaker. So the book from France is read by a native French speaker. The book from Quebec is read by someone who is a native French speaker from French-speaking Canada, and the same for Morocco and Tunisia. So you can see at the bottom, France, Belgique, Suisse, Quebec, Maroc, Tunisia, they are the books that I have published so far. And then there are plans in future weeks, months, and probably years to publish books around Senegal, Guadeloupe, Martinique, Réunion, Saint-Pierre, Miquelon, and Guyane. Coming soon, I've been writing this for a number of months. It is coming together, coming to a close quite soon. Les Aventures de Polyglotte en Guadeloupe. And you've just got a little screen grab here of one of the slides. And again, this is just to say that Danielle and I both feel very strongly about tackling the idea of colonization face on, that it's not something that we should gloss over or something that we ought to be concerned about including in our lessons. I think it's a really important aspect of teaching our subject. As well as the books that I myself have written, I am a keen collector of books from all over the French-speaking world. I was very fortunate to have a 5-week adventure around North Africa a number of years ago. And what I loved the most about my travels was that I got to pick up a number of books. And you can see just from the covers, you know, the faces are not faces of white European French speakers. They are wearing the voile. They have you know, clothes that perhaps we wouldn't identify with someone living in Paris or Marseille. So really, really important that we try and extend that in our lessons. There's another one here. These were some of the books that I picked up in Senegal. Some of them from Amazon, some of them from my travels. Um, some traditional tales, some very simple reading books that I use with my primary learners. And you can see in the middle there, Le Bossu et les Ninki Nanki is also in Wolof. So getting the children to realize that as much as French is a widely spoken language in Senegal, that the main language spoken there is in fact Wolof, which I'm trying rather unsuccessfully to learn at the moment. And then just a couple more on here. So again, a little bit of a mixture there of books from Senegal and books from Morocco. And some of those did actually come from Amazon in the UK. So it is worth doing a little bit of a search on there and seeing what you can come up with. But as I say, it's really important to me that when I share books and stories with my children, that I'm not just presenting a Eurocentric view of France and l'Hexagone, that I'm showing them that there is a whole world speaking French out there, and how important it is that they really apply themselves in their French lessons, because as much as they might assume that English will serve them well when they go off traveling in the future, that, because French is spoken across all 5 continents, it's important that they realize that and appreciate it, so that they know that if they do get stuck in English, that they can travel pretty much anywhere in the world and their French will serve them well. Here is probably one of my top 5 books of all time. This is Santé en Poésie et Comptine tout autour du monde. The hyperlink there at the bottom takes you where to buy that on Amazon. And I think it retails at around £10, but you can see from the index page there, it focuses again on all 5 continents, a number of different poems, certainly from the Francosphere. And I think on the next slide, there's an example that I've used quite recently. So as I said, we have a partner school link in Morocco. So what I try and do perhaps occasionally as a starter is show the students a brief text like this, so a nice simple poem. They might have access to dictionaries. They might just have a look at it and see what words they recognize or understand. Can they spot any cognates? Could they come up with a verse of their own? So using it as a stimulus for reading aloud. It could be an opportunity for them to get creative and actually use what they know about that part of the Francosphere to write something of their own. I said I was also going to speak briefly about magazines. Now, unfortunately, here in the UK, if you are listening in from the States or Canada, you will still have access to the wonderful magazines that are produced by Mary Glasgow and team. But it could be that in your department, you've got a stash of these from years gone by. And you will get a copy of these slides. So certainly the ones that are within my presentation, you have free access to. But just giving these out as a starter task, sometimes I will give an activity with it. Sometimes it will just be a reading for pleasure activity. And I think there's a lot of value in that. Obviously, there's a little bit of information about the country itself. You've got 7 very basic paragraphs that the students can read. You could divide them into 7 groups, and each group might just take 1 paragraph each. And then, as we said earlier, it's really important that the children understand why in a country like Senegal in West Africa, why might they speak French? What is it that happened in their history that means that they still, many, many years down the line, speak French, and how do they feel about that? You have got another one here, which is all about the top 5 tourist destinations where French is spoken. And again, unusual places like Vanuatu. Vanuatu, I've just recently been researching. It's somewhere that features now quite heavily on my bucket list of places to visit. But again, when you're looking at holidays, do we always need to focus on France, or could we just try and extend that reach beyond mainland France? Morocco, I think, has featured quite heavily in this presentation because, as I say, we've got a partner link in Morocco. So I'm always looking for exciting articles and features that the children might want to read about, and certainly the one about the Quad Passion and the Marathon International des Sables has gone down particularly well with some of the younger boys in my lessons. If you're teaching about school day, why not look at a comparison between a child in mainland France, Gaspard, and a child who lives in Casablanca in Morocco. Okay, so moving on to part 3, recognition for your work on global citizenship. I think if we are putting all of this time and energy into finding culturally rich, authentic materials, whether they be ones that you've created yourself or ones that you are happy to download from our shops. It's important that we we sing about what we do, that we continue to promote our subject. One of the ways in which I have the students log what they are doing in our lessons to promote the Francosphere is using this template from the lovely people at the British Council. I have them stick a mini passport in the back of their books, and every time we visit a different part of the Francosphere, either through a reading activity, a translation, perhaps watching a video, they get a special stamp in their passport. And you can see here, this is just a couple of months into term. We've got Louisiane, we have got the Congo, we've got Canada, we have got Swiss, Haiti, and so on. So you can see that the more you explore the Francosphere in your lessons, the more stamps they will have. And then hopefully by the end of the year, they will have a growing awareness that actually, wow, Madame Buell, you know, French really is spoken all over the world as you tell us that it is. Many of you, if you are in the UK, will have heard of the work of the British Council. You might not be aware of the International Schools Award. So this is an award that is completely free of charge to apply for as a languages teacher. And if you are seen to be doing even a minimal amount of work on introducing the wider Francosphere, or if you're a Spanish teacher or a German teacher, the wider target language countries into your teaching, you can follow the link at the bottom of that page and you will be presented with the International Schools Award at whatever level they deem you to be suited to. Another way of gaining recognition is through the Global School Alliance. This is quite a new organisation, so you may or may not have heard of them. If you log on, you can create a free account. They will help you to find partner schools to link with across the French, German and Spanish speaking world. And in my previous school to where I am now as head of department, we managed to gain the Bronze Award. And that was really very much a team effort at the time, connecting with schools overseas, the occasional webinar with our partner school in Morocco, show some of the articles and magazines that I've shown you earlier, you know, evidencing that we were doing those sorts of things in our lessons. A very simple and straightforward process, and again, free of charge if that is something that you are interested in. And depending on the level of international work that you're doing, you could apply at a very basic bronze level all the way up to gold, depending on how much you are doing with your learners. So I'm going to pause there to take any questions. So please do feel free to comment either in the chat or in the Q&A section. But if you do, beyond the webinar, have any questions, you'd like any more information about our resources or support in helping you to integrate more of the Francosphere into your lessons, please do reach out and make a note of my email address, or you can contact me through my website, polyglotlanguages.co.uk. As I mentioned earlier, Danielle and I have written lots of resources about Haiti, which you can find free of charge on our Francosphere website, and then a link there directly to our TES shop, which I mentioned earlier. So do grab all of those resources about school in different parts of the Francosphere for free whilst they are on there for free. And finally, the link to today's presentation, which I know I have presented to you solo, but is very much the combined effort of myself and my lovely colleague Danielle, who, as I say, unfortunately can't be with us today. So do make a note of that link, do download a copy of the presentation and share it with your colleagues. And I'm just going to have a quick check in the chat to see if there are any questions or specific comments. I think we've got a question just coming in now, so just bear with me whilst I try and find my mouse. Do you have anything similar to recommend in terms of German around the world? Thank you for your question, Vladimira. You may or may not be aware that the UCL, the University College London, along with the Association for Language Learning, there's a new consortia for languages, which is just currently in its early stages of development. And there's a massive emphasis, both financially and resource-wise, on German. So my advice to you, Vladimir, would be to have a look on the UCL website and look at that new consortium for languages. There are lots of hub schools popping up across the country. There will be a dedicated website. If I can hop off in a moment, I might just see if I can pop that link into the chat for you. But take a note of my email address, Vladimira. Drop me an email with that question. And if I'm not able to share that link to the UCL resources portal today, then I will certainly do so after the webinar in a personal email. So let me just have a quick look. How did you find your partner schools? So that's from SKEDGE. A number of the links came from the British Council. I don't like the B word, pre-Brexit. So there was a lovely portal which we used to be able to access called eTwinning. Some of you may know of it. And sadly, because we are no longer part of the European Union, we no longer have access to that portal. So the best way to find partner schools in the current climate is, I would say, through the Global Schools Alliance, but there are still ways and means of doing that through the British Council. So I would also recommend that you go into the British Council website and see if they can put you in touch with colleagues overseas. Guest has put, could you put the link in the chat, please? If you could just confirm what link you would like, and I will certainly aim to do that in a second. The passport stamp is from the British Council. So on the slide, if you download the presentation at tinyurl.com/lsbuell, the link to where you can download that passport. The stamp, sorry. The stamp I had made are local stampers. So in my hometown of York, again, I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for. So I basically had it made, and I think it cost me in the region of £12. So it's a self-inking stamp, and that just allows me to put a few of those in the back of the students' books and passports, and allows the students to keep a track of where they've sort of virtually visited. Clara said that the Goethe Institute is very good for German resources. Absolutely. I've just got back from a week in Germany, actually in Berlin, where I've been upskilling my German to try and support some of my younger language learners. And so, yeah, I would definitely recommend the Goethe Institute. It's tricky, I think, with German because obviously it is a lesser taught language in the UK, and there are far fewer places outside of Germany where German is spoken, but I do think that they would be a good starter point. And as Claire says, that is also linked to the work of UCL. So please do take a look at that. Gimagine project, yeah, absolutely. With GI and BGA. I'm not sure what GI, Goethe Institute is the Goethe Institute, and BGA, I don't know if you could remind me what BGA stands for, but absolutely the Gimagine project is also a really good starting point. Thank you, British German Association. So I hope that you have all managed to take something away from today's presentation. Please do feel free to contact me if you have any further questions. I'm just going to have one final check in the Q&A box just to see if there is anything else that's popped up. But yeah, do make a note, if nothing else, of the tiny URL, which is where you'll be able to access the presentation. I don't know if anybody could pop in the chat whether they've managed to do that, because it would be good to know that that link works. I'm just going to pop it in there again. So let's just put here www.tinyurl.com/L, capital, it must be capital L, capital S, and then my surname, Buell. I hope that link works for you. If somebody wants to copy that across into a separate window and just give me a thumbs up to let me know that that works. But any problems, do please feel free to email me. I hope that that has been useful. I know it's been very French centric, but there are many places to source equally culturally rich materials for Spanish and French. I didn't mention it specifically this afternoon, but there are also some Facebook groups, certainly one for French, decolonizing the French, decolonizing the curriculum in MFL, which is a great source of inspiration. The Association for Language Learning, who I mentioned earlier, also have some special interest groups for colleagues who are wanting to integrate more target language culture from outside of Europe into their lessons. So thank you for letting me know that the link works. I hope that you will share that freely with your colleagues, and I wish you a fantastic rest of your language show live this weekend. Thank you very much for tuning in, and all the very best. Take care. Thank you for your kind comments. I'm sorry I'm suddenly in the dark, but I didn't want to get up and turn the light on. It's suddenly gone very dark where I am. So thank you very much. I do hope you've taken away some great ideas, and I look forward to connecting with you further should you wish to email me or message me. I'll just put my Twitter in the box as well. Please do connect on Twitter if you are a fellow tweeter. All right, take care, guys, and thank you ever so much. Au revoir. Au revoir.